Hi, this is Ravit Rose, founder of Iru. Super pleased to be with Laurie Baron, who is an attorney and a mediator here with Iru's, representing families all across Massachusetts. And we know that there's a lot of facts and myths and people not knowing the truth about how does custody work, alimony, splitting of assets, how does it work in Massachusetts. So we're going to take a very high level look and give you some basic information, and you could also go into the FAQs article on Massachusetts for much more detail. So, Laurie, thank you so much for being here. Really looking forward to hearing your knowledge, your wisdom, sharing with us on a very high level, like about custody, alimony, and splitting of assets. How does it work in your state?
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, so this is just a general overview of the rules under which Massachusetts divorces are uh, evaluated, and the rules under the lens through which the judge looks at the ultimate separation agreement or decision that they're going to make. So Massachusetts is what's called an equitable distribution state. That means that anything that is a marital asset uh, will be distributed fairly, equitably. Does not mean 50-50. Can mean 50-50. Most times does mean 50-50. Doesn't mean it has to be 50-50. And people are under the assumption that's what it means. But there's a lot of things that go into um, you know that's looked at in order to determine what's equitable. One of those things is contributions to the marriage, especially with longer term marriages. Um, uh, uh, if one party is not working and the other party is working, um, you know, there's still a contribution. It has a monetary value. Uh, Taking care of the children, taking care of the home. If one party's disabled, if one party's not. So there's a lot of things that go into the equitable distribution. And these are just some of them. Um, and what Massachusetts differs from a lot of states is that once you're married, everything is marital asset. So even if you had it before you got married, it's a marital asset when you're married, with certain exceptions. Certain gifts, certain inheritances, certain things. There's exceptions, but the general starting point is that everything's a marital asset. So if you're married and you have a home before you get married, and your name is still on the deed, and your spouse's is not, and then you get a divorce, well, that house is a marital asset. Um, Again, unless it was an inheritance and things like that. Again, those are exceptions. We're not going into that. But so, and also marital debt. That's that's it. So whether one party or the other party has the credit card debt doesn't matter. It's a marital debt. So um, all of that is considered in terms of equitable distribution, distributing the assets. When you have children, um, that's also one of the things that they look at, because they have the court has to determine child support and contribution to, there's the child support guidelines, but then there's also extracurricular activities and support, support for the child, the family, um, who has custody. They determine, when custody is determined, um, that affects child support, and that also affects contribution. So there's it's a very everything plays off of each other in the final equitable distribution um, support requirements for that particular marriage. And it is not a very wise thing to listen to somebody else saying, well, you can get this and you can get that because you're entitled to this and I got this with mine. And because each case is different, each factor is different. All the factors are different. So in Massachusetts, there's child support guidelines, just like most other states, all, if I'm not mistaken, have child support guidelines. Those are set by law. So what happens is your income, there's a whole calculator worksheet. You put numbers in there. It spits out a number. Can there be a deviation from that? Yes. Is it something easily done? No. But it can be done, again, based on certain factors. But what you can't do is bargain away the child's right to child support. So one person mediation, let's say mediation, one person says, all right, I'll give you the house um, uh, if you don't ask me to uh,
An exchange.
pay child support. You can't do that. You cannot bargain away the child's right to support because it's the child's right. So those are, that's something I don't know about other states other than the ones I practice in, but definitely in Massachusetts, you can't do that. Alimony is something different. So Massachusetts has what's called an alimony calculator, and it's based on the length of the marriage. So up to a certain amount, I think it's 2 years, um, you know, there could be an order of a certain amount of time after the marriage ends for alimony, if the facts lend themselves to that. As you get more years into the marriage, the amount of time that the court could award alimony after the marriage increases. Um, Once you hit like a 20-year marriage and beyond, then it's really something where you you have to convince the court that there shouldn't be alimony because it's almost um, assumed that there will be because of the length of the marriage. But that doesn't mean you can't waive alimony. It happens all the time as long as the other parts of the agreement, there's an equitable distribution and each party does not leave the uh, the marriage in a worse position, disadvantaged, and they maintain the standard of living that they were, living during the marriage. That doesn't mean that they have to, if it's a $2 million house they live in, that they have to continue living in a $2 million house. It just means they can't be so disadvantaged that they're not living the same quality of life. Um, so, so alimony, like I said, it's one of those things that that can you don't have to do it, but um, the more you're married, the more you have to convince the court that you're still getting an equitable share of everything by not taking alimony.
Mm.
And so those are really like the main issues in equitable distribution. If there's a marital home, there's multiple ways to distribute that. There's something called a buyout, or you can sell the home and split the equity. But again, it's case specific, it's fact specific. But during mediation, and this happens in litigation too, but it's one party ends up losing. But during mediation, when you want to have, you can be creative in figuring out what's the best equitable way to distribute everything and to give everybody what they're entitled to under the law, um, but have it more fair according to your terms as opposed to what the court believes is fair. Because ultimately, the judge during a mediation, when you present them when you present them with the judge with the separation agreement, all they're doing is looking at it to make sure that it's fair. And whether that's what they would have um, ordered is almost irrelevant as long as what they're being presented would be fair. They may not agree with it, but if it's something that they can't say is not fair, they would most likely, um, approve it. So again, mediation really gives you a lot of power to come out of it not as a zero-sum game where one party loses and one party wins, but as an agreement where everybody wins and everybody's happy. Everybody comes out of it with something that they're content with, and that gives them something they need and want. So,
Wonderful. Well, there's a lot to think about. There's a lot to consider. There's a lot of exceptions and rules. So, what I would suggest is, wherever you're at in your divorce process right now in Massachusetts, whether you're contemplating, whether you started separating, whether you're starting to talk about it, whether you're thinking, whatever the case is, please do feel free to reach out to Laurie. All her coordinates are here below. And I'm sure she'd be delighted to provide you a consultation and see if and how she could help you and show you and explain to you like what would fit for your particular situation. So thank you so much for being here with us, Laurie. Thank you for sharing all this great wisdom and tips with us. Thank you all for watching. Until the next time we speak, I wish you a day that matters. Take care, everyone.
bye bye.